I think for me, ownership is taking control of all areas of your life and being intentional with the inputs that you have. And so I think a big piece of ownership versus, being a renter, if you will, is having intentionality, making the choices of what you're going to say yes and no to, and going from there. Otherwise, we're kind of more that victim. We're just bouncing around like a buoy in water.
This is the Own It Show, where we tell stories of how everyday people made ownership theirs.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own It Show. I'm your host, Justin Rothling-Schofer. And if you are new here, welcome. This is the Own It Show. And the big thing that we do, as you heard in the intro, we tell stories of people who make ownership theirs and have found a different level of success. We all know that we have that level of different in us, but if we're not living differently, if we're not executing differently, it's hard to ultimately realize something different. And so if the podcast today speaks to you, if it gives you value in any type of way, the only thing I ask in return is that you would leave a review, you would share it with somebody that could ultimately change and impact their lives, and then message me and let me know. Because the big thing at the end of the day is we put all this content out and we seek to do things differently, but we don't really know the impact unless you say so. And so that's the way that we reach, that's the way that we teach, and that's the way that we empower. Today, as we dive in, I'm really excited about this. This is somebody who I got introduced to just a few months ago, and I was on his podcast last week, and I've really just developed a friendship. And the unique part about how he shows up is a lot of his story is about entrepreneurship. So just as we're talking about how corporate America has shaped a lot of what we talk about as normal, and quite frankly, has just made quick fixes to dysfunction and called it normal. He was like in the middle of it, just as if you might have been. And we know that a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, executives, but as you've been living in this state of normal, this state of dysfunction, this state of quick fixes that we think are going to get us great results, but yet are frustrated as to why, Cory has been able to live through this, and he's ultimately been able to create a life by design that's shifted in a big way. How do you win at life, and how do you win at home? How do you win at work, and how do you win at home? How do you win in your personal life, and how do you win in all aspects of your life? So could not be more excited to invite on our guest today. He's released his first book in 2019, Win at Home First, an inspirational guide for work-life balance, but also just wrote another book, Rise and Go. And so he also has the Win at Home First podcast, top 1.5% global podcast per listen notes. He's not only a guy that's talking about it, but he's a guy that's doing it as well. So Cory Carlson, excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend a few minutes with us.
Justin, thank you very much for the opportunity to not only be on your podcast, but have a chance to continue talking with you. I've enjoyed every conversation we've had to date, and looking forward to this one as well. So thank you.
I love it. Yeah, it's unique when you start to really create relationships with people that are beyond just the surface, and you have things that are in common, right? And I think the crazy part about this, I can't remember who told me this, but if you actually look at it, you're 99% similar to every other person on this planet. And the 1% is what differentiates us. And so often we're willing to look at what does differentiate us rather than where we're similar and where we can help and serve other people. And so if we can shift that to the 99% in which we're similar, and how can we serve and how can we give, it really makes things, I think, a lot more fun and makes life a lot more fulfilling at the same time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm in orbit with a buddy where we meet for breakfast once a month, and I'm white, he's black. And when I remember talking with somebody and they shared, what's that like? I'm like, it's awesome. Well, we talk about things we are both trying to figure out: how to be a father, how to be a husband, how to, for us, integrate faith into our work. And that's the challenge. So it's back to what you just said. It's zooming in on what we have like, and then obviously our differences add just more value to the conversation. So we're not just in an echo chamber. And so, no, I totally agree. And it's being curious.
Totally. I want to touch on a couple things here, Cory, because the concept of dysfunction, the concept of living in dysfunction, normalizing dysfunction, putting quick fixes on dysfunction, I think happens so often in our life. And I'd love you to kind of tell the story of your kind of come up through the corporate world and what you ultimately experienced from a sense of burnout and from a sense of overwhelm, and kind of like just that your purpose was just being almost pulled from or burned out, if you will, like the spark that was there, the lack of focus, and everything that kind of existed in that world, but yet it's normal because that's just what corporate America is about. And so I'd love you to kind of lean into that dysfunction that occurred and how it was able to be brought to the forefront of your mind.
I have a lot of probably stories that would help talk about that, but the one that's actually ironically coming to my mind right now is I remember being at this dinner with the private equity group that owned us. I was president of sales for a company. So this is towards the end of my 20-year corporate career. I'm a civil engineer by degree, and then was in the civil engineering space selling those type of products like bridges, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, real sexy stuff. But I ended up at this particular dinner with the private equity group that owned us, and he was showing video clips of how loud his brand new Mercedes was. And I remember just sitting there and just the way the whole dinner was going, what the conversation was about, and even the few conversations throughout that, couple day event we were participating in. I was like, is this really what my life's all about? Like, am I really just put on this earth to help, private equity companies make more money? I mean, I was making money along the way too, but is that really what it's all about? Just EBITDA? And just being part of creating a company, adding value to it, and then sold and doing it again. And so in that particular moment, that was one of those stories of, wow, I don't know where I fit in all this, and if this is why I was put on this earth. And I still have an executive coach, but at the time, my executive coach, we were talking, and through the whole conversation, it became this piece of, hey, until you go elsewhere, maybe this is the beginning of you finding something else or going out on your own. And at that time, I didn't know what I was going to do. It's like, we still got to find redeeming qualities of the day. We still got to find redeeming qualities of why you're in corporate America. How do you find enjoyment out of it? Because if we don't enjoy our job, we end up not being very good spouses, not very good parents, because it all just has a ripple effect. And so in that, Justin, he basically challenged me, come up with a vision statement. I was like, what's a sentence going to do to help me have purpose in these times? And he's like, trust me, just go for it. So I put together a vision statement. And my vision statement, I put it together 8 years ago after that dinner. And it's to connect people to greater performance and even more significant purpose. That is still my vision statement to this day. And so as I was traveling to Nashville to go be the sales guy, I would try to connect him to greater performance. How can he be a better spouse? How can he be a better parent? But also, how would he be better at his job? Blocking out time management, making sure he's doing the business development calls. And so part of my vision statement was a greater performance and even more significant purpose. So for me, faith is a big piece. So if I could talk faith with some of my employees, I would. If I couldn't, then I just talk about greater purpose, serve other people. Life's a little bit more than just what you need. And so that actually helped me change how I was viewing work, how I was viewing everything. It didn't just come about EBITDA and revenue for the company. However, that began my journey of, all right, now I want to put this more into play. And so that just was kind of the piece of this dysfunction, as you mentioned. It just wasn't me about helping other people make money. There had to be more to this world.
Yeah, I think the unique thing, and I'm going to read a little excerpt here from my book I've got coming out, because it's just kind of jogged this as you were talking about this. But I said the sad reality of normal is that you don't know what different feels like, because different is all that, or because normal is all that you know. It's not until you're willing to try something different that you realize how dead normal actually is. It's only when you take ownership of your life, build a life by design, and embrace different you realize being normal becomes something you want to stay as far as possible from. And as you kind of talk about that story, I think there's multiple ways in people's lives that we can start to realize this. I kind of even go back to this door that's in my office, and it's a sliding door that takes us out to the patio. And for some reason it stopped sliding. And I used to love to open it up, walk out to the patio, do a couple laps outside, come back in, sit down, start work again, or just even as I was on a phone call, open it up or walk outside, or if it's cool out, open it up and have fresh air. But it stopped working. And so the only way to get out to the patio was to go back in through the living room and out through the front area. And that quick fix, that Band-Aid became that inconvenience became normal for me. It became just something that I considered, hey, this is just how things happen, how things operate. But all of a sudden I was out of town and my wife starts to use my office and she's like, why does that door not work? Like this, why are you functioning this way? This makes no sense. It's annoying. It's frustrating. It's inconvenient. And I just saw it as normal. I just got used to it. I got used to functioning in dysfunction. And so I'm questioning even you audience listeners out there as you're going through this is what areas of your life have you gotten normal functioning and dysfunction in? Where areas have you taken quick fixes in where you're expecting to perform well, you're expecting to do well, you're expecting to experience things well, but yet you're still living in dysfunction. You're still living in this state of normal. And so, Cory, even go back to your story, is where in amongst the journey as like that dinner that night that started to maybe bring awareness, just as me going out of town and getting a phone call from my wife saying, hey, what's with the door? What the new awareness that you found at this dinner, what did that start to do for you from a mental state, from a spiritual state, from a physical state? How did that new awareness start to bring other things into your awareness as well? And then how did you correct the dysfunction that you ultimately knew was existing?
I think one part about even your sliding door story is you needed someone in the outside to speak truth into you. You would have kept going through the living room, maybe forever. Who knows? We
still
don't know.
Be there today.
Yeah, you'd still be, or man, until that door broke, and then you'd be like, "Oh man, what am I going to do now?" But I think if we're not careful, I mean, I think all of us need to make sure, hey, we're doing. Would you speak big on stillness and your acronym SLOW, where you're big on that? And through series of reflection, we can get some of that. Hey, what's normal in my life? What have I normalized? But sometimes we're just blind to it because we've normalized it. But I think a big piece of your story is having your wife speak truth into you, like, why are you not using this door? And I think for me, having a coach was helping me just start to question things. And that was a key piece for me to start questioning. I was giving others permission to kind of speak into my life. Without a coach, I was in this vacuum echo chamber, like we even talked a little bit about already, but just, I was working with corporate people. It's all the same. Everyone's doing the same job. Everyone's busy. Everyone's, sick and tired of being sick and tired, but no one knows anything different how to do it. But every once in a while inside corporate, you see someone get some movement of things differently. Same thing true in this entrepreneurial world, that you and I are in. It can get normalized as well. Like normalizes hustle, normalizes I don't have time for quiet time, normalizes, I'm just going to hustle. And the more I grind, the more I'll get. And so everything can be normalized. But in the corporate piece, where I started to see change was by having a coach, by taking questions to him, allowing him to speak to me. I've got I literally have a small group. We meet every Thursday morning and just starting to be more open-handed into my career. I think another big piece for me, Justin, is I was taking my identity to my job. And I'd done that at different times throughout my career and, we did a nice job of resetting it. And, for me, my identity is I'm strong in my faith. And so it's being a beloved son of God. That's where my number one identity is. But sometimes I was getting my identity in my job. I was president of sales. That was the best title I ever had. That was pretty cool. I was making the most money I ever had made. And so there was security in that piece. So part of why I was normalizing those lifestyles was because that's kind of who I thought I was. But when I started to be more open-handed with my life, with my career, that, hey, it could be anything. And so I began this journey of me deciding, I'm not defined by what I do. And the reality is none of us should be, because it's always temporary. Because you can get fired from a job, which I eventually end up getting fired from that job, which we can obviously talk about. But when we tie our identity to temporary things, when they change, man, that's how midlife crises happen. That's how the things wreck when we do it. And so for me, I was like, you know what? I'm throwing it all on the table. Maybe I'm not meant to be in this career forever. And what do I want to do? What do I want to pursue? And what I want to do is I loved coaching individuals. I loved coaching our 30 sales reps throughout the whole country and helping them become better at work and at home. I was like, I want to go do this for a living, because if it helped them and the company EBITDA or profitability improved, I want to go do this. So that's what allowed me to pivot and step into what becomes coaching and speaking and turning that into a business. But it all stepped out of me being open to say, hey, all this is open-handed. Speak to me to ways to make it better.
So as you kind of alluded to, and you really leaned in on your coaching and your team, you talk about like the importance of community. And I think so often people who are, again, in the entrepreneurial world, they've stepped out maybe from what was normal before, but you now step into a new sense of normal. And listeners, if you've been listening to this long enough, you know that I use the word normal to almost depict a little bit of something that's old in nature, or that's slightly negative in a negative connotation. Whereas different is something new. It's something fresh. It's something set aside. It's something set apart. It's something unique. It's something that's just prepared for you. And when we realize that we all need something different, I talk about this often, is that not one of the strategies that I put forward is the ideal, but rather what works for you. Everybody's body's different. Everybody's needs are different. Everybody's season's different. You're going to need different things in different seasons. What you're using today is not the same thing you'll use next week. Whether that comes to, primarily we're talking about our health and what we're doing in that nature. But you talk about the importance of community and having somebody speaking into your life, having an outsider speak into your life. And so often when entrepreneurs step out, or they start to go, maybe they've been an entrepreneur for a while, maybe they've been a business owner for a while, maybe they are new in this area, they get into these unique situations where entrepreneurs are often lone soldiers, lone wolves, high-performing people, creatives, visionaries, that they just do life on their own. And all of a sudden, from being in a community of corporate or a community of not like-minded thinkers, they now all of a sudden get siloed. It's great for a moment, great for a season, but then it gets really lonely, gets really hard, gets difficult to see some of your blind spots that you've maybe normalized and have become dysfunctional in. And so I want to ask you about, like, when you stepped out of that environment and you then got into your own practice, your own consulting, what did that look like from how you sought community? How did that look at how you were able to have people around you that were able to speak into your life and make sure, hey, Cory, where do we need to check you? Where do we need to continue to repath you, if you will, and keep you on this beaten path so you're driving in that correct direction?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple groups. And I think one for that listener who's listening, like, hey, community, that sounds pretty cool, but foreign and distant, and I don't have that. Well, I'm with you. I think it was about 8 years ago. When I was president of sales, I was traveling every week. I was super employee during the week, and I'd come home and I try to be super husband and super dad. And I wasn't doing life with anyone else. And as I was talking to my coach, and I just said, I'm just tired. And as I had shared a few other items with him, he's like, you're tired because you're pouring into people all the time. No one's pouring into you. Basically, you have no friends. I was like, Oh, shoot. And I had buddies I could call and have a beer and go watch a football game. But that's it. I didn't have people I was doing life with. So I put together a list of about 20 dudes and I went and did like speed dating. They didn't know I was speed dating, but I went and sought after guys. And if guys, we only were talking about like sports and weather, I was like, I don't want any more of this. I mean, any more orbit with them. But for the individuals where we talked about marriage, we talked about parenting, we talked about our faith, and we also talked about sports and weather. I mean, because I like talking about sports too. I was like, I want more of that. And so I put together a group of guys. We meet every Thursday morning and we go on an annual trip to Florida. But I didn't used to have that. So I think for that listener is like, I don't have community. I didn't either. And I know that's part of your story too, Justin, where you didn't have any at one point. And so for that listener, if you feel lonely, it's okay. Take a little intentionality. We've all been there, and go for it. So I'd still have that group. That group is life-giving. But when I stepped into this, into coaching, speaking, to what you mentioned, I needed community. Some community I pay for because I'm in a mastermind and I need people that are doing similar things. So I pay for that community, but also I'm being intentional to find other people in this space that I can talk with, pick each other up, be encouraging when need to be, give good ideas, hold each other accountable. And I think one item that we all tend to overlook is this whole idea, hey, I don't need friends. I got a lot of tasks. I got to get things done. And you use the phrase lone wolf. Well, lone wolves get taken out. That's why they travel in a herd. And the lone wolves get taken out. And what does taken out look like? That's when the devil can come after you and start messing with your mindset, and things unravel in your marriage and your parenting. And so it's really being intentional. And what I found to be true is when I make time for community, when I make time for my spouse and going on dates, when I make time to be intentional with my kids, everything else falls into place. There's this video that was on YouTube that I saw a long time ago, and you've seen versions of that where there's a bucket, and in the bucket, if you put in the small pebbles first, and then like the rocks and the boulders, it doesn't all fit. But instead, when you take the bucket, you put in the big rocks, which faith, family, friends, and then the smaller rocks, and then the sand, it all fits. In this particular video, the professor says, "Hey class, is the bucket full?" And as it's full, they're like, "Yes, professor, it's full." And when they see it's not full, they see it's full. He grabs these two beers and pours in the beers and basically says, no matter how busy you think your life is, you always got time for a beer with a buddy. And I find that to be so true. It's unbelievable when we start to make priorities for community, things work out.
Yeah, it's so good what you kind of just talked through, because at the end of the day, when we're diving into like where your priorities fall, and I talk about creating a priority tree, and if something makes the tree, it means that it's important, because there's only so many things that you can put on the tree. So it doesn't matter if it's number 1 or if it's number 5. If it's on the tree, it's important. And when I finally got mine right, number 1 was God. Number 2 was myself. Number 3 was my spouse. Number 4 was my friends and family. And number 5 was my business. And I also come back to this concept and I say priority does not mean time spent, because I easily spend the most time on my business. However, when I do my monthly audits of where I'm spending my time, what I'm doing, what I'm focused on, nothing takes the place of date night. Nothing takes the place of my morning quiet time. Nothing takes the place of my workouts and my energy refreshment time in the sauna or in my workouts or the steam room or whatever it might be. Nothing takes the place of Sunday church. Nothing takes the place of my small group. Nothing takes the place of dinners with my wife. Nothing takes the place of my phone calls with my dad or my mom on Monday or Fridays. Like these are the things that you've got like locked in. And then there's more than enough time to work a 12-hour day. And so it comes right back to that example that you gave. But I think so many of us forget and don't have a voice speaking in or a community speaking in that operate life this way, that operate life by design, but rather they go by default, and they wonder why they're unfulfilled. They wonder why they're stressed out all the time. They wonder why things are falling apart with their marriage or why things are falling apart with their business. They wonder why these things, But if we were to actually peel back the curtain, we go back to how we started, there's a massive amount of dysfunction occurring in their life that they just consider normal, that they're just working through every single day. And they haven't realized the fact that the dysfunction is actually creating a normalization of a life and a vote for somebody that they actually don't want to become, for a life that they don't want to live, but have forgotten that every habit, every behavior, every choice they make is a vote for not only the person who you are today, but the vote of the person that you're trying to become. And I think that context of your community that you spoke about, of getting around these people, of having people bolster you, is helping to hold you accountable in that same way.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And it's accountable because in the groups, you're talking about the dates you're going on. Are they going on dates? They're asking you're going on dates. You're getting good ideas. Now, I think the other lie that I would tell myself, and maybe listeners, you're telling yourself this as well, is, well, I work a lot. My spouse is not going to want me to go hang out with, be away from the home more, because I'm going to go meet with these guys, or I'm going to go do these groups. And so that was a lie I would tell myself, that, hey, I'm not going to go ask my wife, I go be in a small group or be with other guys because I'm away from the house too much. And I think that was a lie that, I think was just getting kind of fueled through just Satan, because that way I'm not with community. Now, if I was going to hang out with scumbags that were talking about, chicks and all this stuff, of course my wife wouldn't want me doing that. Absolutely not. But instead, she actually loves when I go and meet with these men, and when I do my annual trip to Florida, because I come back refreshed. I've got ideas for our marriage that I want to start to maybe incorporate. I've been laughing. I've had fun. So she likes me. So I think for that listener who's thinking, man, I don't know if my wife or my husband would be for this, I begin the conversation, because I delayed getting involved with community for a little bit out of guilt, because I traveled so much. I was already so busy, and that's just a lie. So once I stepped into it, and then likewise, I love when my wife is with her girlfriends, all the same reasons. She's laughing, she's getting her soul filled. And so it's just, it's so good.
100%. And it's important. It's important to be able to have that and to be able to continue to move into that. Kind of tell the listeners some of the strategies that you use, the strategies that you impart to really help people win both at home and in their business. Like, what does that look like? Is now that you've been able to do that, what does that universal word win mean to you, and how can our listeners start to put some of those in place?
Yeah. Thanks. One strategy helping people with, right, is identifying those rocks. What are those important? We use the 5 capitals, and the 5 capitals is, the first one is spiritual, which is connection with God, and what is your purpose, and kind of understanding, and are you getting in solitude? Are you getting your quiet time, living in your purpose? The second one's relational, who you doing life with. So that is spouse, kids, friends. Do you have a frequency, whether it's a date night or I'm getting together with the guys? The third one is physical. That currency is time and energy. And so it's working out. Does your schedule control you, or you control your schedule? And it's working through time management practices and principles. The fourth one is intellectual, which is about insights and ideas. And how do you have a posture of curiosity to continue to innovate, to continue to grow? And then the last one's financial, which it's about not only, stewardship, but it's about generosity. And so putting together those 5 capitals is definitely a piece, because some people, you talk about life by design or life by default. Some people's default is they go the way of the world. It can be that money's the most important thing, or it could be busyness is the most important thing. And so understanding, hey, that's not the way of the world. That's not a life to the full. The life to the full is actually the 5 capitals in the right order. So that's one piece. Another piece of kind of low-hanging fruit with executives is that idea of a purpose. Like, do you have a vision statement? I put together, in my first book, Win a Home First, I put together a structure of how to build out a vision statement. And so, Justin, for listeners, I'll give anyone a free book. They pay shipping and handling. So you just go to my website, corymcarlson.com/free book. And they can select, they want Win Home First, which is the first book, which talks about work-life balance, or the second book, which is Rise and Go, which is about resilience and hope. But in that first book, Win Home First, talk about a purpose statement. So that's a big piece. And then, Justin, I would say a third component is the quantity of our no's will drive the quality of our yeses.
Yeah, that's good.
So the quantity of our no's drive the quality of our yeses. And I will work with business leaders and executives to really think through what all they're saying yes to. And a big piece that we're all guilty of is we felt hidden or in hibernation for a year with COVID. And so a lot of people came out of COVID saying yes to everything. Like, I'm making up for 12, 18 months. I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm going to every barbecue. I'm going to anytime anyone wants me to make coffee. I'm saying yes. I'm going to every meeting I need to. And it's like, no. And so I'll work with a lot of leaders of just doing that audit of, what are you spending time with? And with a lot of leaders, they're not using the 8 to 5 efficiently. There's redundancy in meetings. They are going, but they're also sending all their direct reports to the meetings. It's like, no, let's free up some of that time. And so we'll look through what do you do versus what do you delegate? Because a lot of people are playing below their pay grade in their job because they're doing things that someone at a lower per hour rate could do. And so that's been normalized where people don't use their VA, or they don't use their assistant, or they don't even use their direct reports. And so thinking that through from an 8 to 5 standpoint, then afterwards, what are you saying yes to? Do your kids really need to be in 3 sports? Do you really need to be on the board of, 2 nonprofits? It may work for you, but maybe for the season is dial back, say no to a few things. Well, those are, I'd say, 3 quick ones, right? The 5 capitals, a purpose, vision statement, and then understand what you're saying yes and no to. Those would be 3 quick ones that listeners could just start to think about to get movement in the right direction to living a life by design and not just one of default of the world.
I love that. The quantity of no, or the quantity of no's drives the quality of your yes. It is just a powerful statement, and one that I constantly kind of play through my mind because I'm guilty of that, is just saying, yes, I want to figure out how to make it work, I literally just had to do that today. I had 2 keynotes booked the same day. I was like trying to figure out how to make them work. They were like an hour and a half apart from one another in terms of distance where I had to go. And it was like an hour and 45 minutes of leeway time between when one would end and one would start. And I'm like, I'm going to figure out a way to make it work. And I was just like, it was giving me so much anxiety. And I finally just had to say, hey, like, I can only do one of these, and right. I got to choose. So I got to say no to one so that I can ultimately just be present and be there and be in and not be worried about running out the door at the end and be able to just truly give it. And so I love that statement, and something that I constantly have to come back to in this time and in this season as well. So Cory, for somebody who lives it and executes on it and imparts on it so heavily, what would you say your definition of ownership is?
I think for me, ownership is taking control of all areas of your life and being intentional with the inputs that you have. So for me, one reason I left corporate and came into this coaching speaking is not only did I want to kind of have my own thing, but I wanted to have more ownership and intentionality with not only my business, what I did from 8 to 5, but also being intentional with my spouse, being intentional with my kids, and really just taking control of my whole calendar. And so having, ownership of it. And so I think a big piece of ownership versus, being a renter, if you will, is having intentionality, making the choices of what you're going to say yes and no to. And going from there. Otherwise, we're kind of more that victim. We're just bouncing around like a buoy in water. And I don't want that. Even in my own life, I've got to, like you talk about your monthly review, I do a monthly review as well. And it's just like, hey, where did I get off track?
Yeah.
And it's taking ownership. And so it's being intentional. I can get off track physically. All right. Your leg hurts. You don't run for the week. You aren't eating very well. And then it's like, all right, I'm recalibrating and I'm taking ownership and control back to my workout, or my quiet time goes off track. It's like, no, I'm recalibrating, getting things figured out.
So good. I love it. Where can people dive in to find more? Cory, if they're wanting to get access to your books, or they're wanting to get access to you, or wanting to learn more about things that you do, where can they find you?
Yeah, two places. I mean, obviously there's all kinds of social media, but the two places, CoryMCarlson.com. That's where I have a weekly newsletter that I send out helping people win at work, win at home. Got access to the two books and more details there. And then on LinkedIn, I mean, that's the social media platform I've shown you. You talk about own it. I realized that, for a long time, I was trying to be all things on all social media platforms. That's absolutely exhausting. I know others can do it well. I can't. So I'm like, you know what? LinkedIn's going to be my jam. And I think that's actually how you and I connected after an introduction was made. So LinkedIn and my website. And like I said earlier, love for anyone to go to CoryMCarlson.com/free book. And we'll send you a book as a thank you for listening, and also just a way to help you with some of the things that helped me. Because the only reason I'm able to talk on a podcast like this, and thanks for having me, Justin, is because I failed. The reason I wrote the book Went Home First is because I lost at home first. Like, this wasn't just because, I think I want to go do these things. It's no, because I lost. I put together some things that helped me get back up, and then they've helped hundreds and thousands since. And it's like, that's what I want to do. So if you're that listener and you feel like you're losing in some parts, hey, that's okay. Where you're at, you don't have to stay there. But by owning it, by being intentional, by grabbing hold and say, I'm fixing my friends, or I'm fixing my purpose statement, or whatever that case is, go do it. Because I've lost in all those areas before. And, continue to listen and recalibrate. I mean, just like with you last week, as we talked about stillness. I was like, man, I kind of been 1 foot in, 1 foot out lately. I've been good before, but after talking to you, allowing you to speak to me, right? Allowing me to always have outside voices to see how I can get better. Then it's like, all right, I'm taking control of it. I'm getting back into my stillness game like I used to. So
I love it.
Hopefully that's encouraging to the listener that they aren't stuck.
It's so good. And listeners, as you guys go forward, I want you to remember, you're not broken. You're perfect just the way that you are, but you're just too good to stay there. And as you step into this new season, as you look at something and you're like, hey, you know what? I am operating in dysfunction. Hey, I am operating in something that has become normal to me that shouldn't be normal anymore. I want to see something different. I want to realize something different. I want to experience something different. I want to think, feel, look, and be different. Well, it requires a different input. It requires you taking ownership and being intentional with what those inputs are. And it could range from the 5 key factors of spiritual, relational, physical, intellectual, and financial components that Cory spoke about. It could be about realigning your purpose and your mission statement. It could be even being more of aware, something as simple as the quantity of no's that you have to ultimately make sure that you can drive a better quality yes. And so as you continue to step forward into this season of wanting to do different, of wanting to get out of this state of dysfunction, when you become aware to something, you can no longer unsee it. And so we realize that success is different. We know that you're different. We'll see you next week.